This is Tammy Reese, and this is another attempt to do my presentation. I've been working on this, trying again since Saturday. So anyway, my talk was on James Longenbach's The Art of Poetic Rhyme. Rather than discussing symbol, alliteration, meter, or other typical poetic devices, James Longenbach's book, The Art of Poetic Rhyme, intricately describes how the careful use of lineation causes the reader of poetry to hear the poem as the poet has determined that it should be heard. Longenbach states, poems are poems because we want to listen to them. Some poems have a prominent argument, some poems don't. But all poems live or die on their capacity to lure us from their beginnings to their ends by a pattern of sounds. And that's on page 120. Longenbach discusses several types of lineation and uses a plethora of poems as exemplars to make his points regarding very subtle shades of meaning. For example, near the beginning of the book, Longenbach discusses the sonic interpretation of Shakespeare's King Lear's mad speech to the apothecary. Longenbach notes how simply changing where the line ends take place, this will radically change how the reader hears the poems. He does not use the term line break. He doesn't believe anything has been broken, but he prefers the term line endings instead, and he discusses a few of those. For example, he describes a short poem by William Carlos Williams that relates to the same sentence 3 times. However, due to the position of the line end, the reader hears a very different emphasis. They taste good to her. They taste good to her. They taste good to her. Due to the words used at the line ending, we hear the emphasis, and we see how that changes with her, good, and taste, each receiving emphasis consecutively as we read. Among the topics that Longenbach discusses are end-stopped and enjambed lines, annotating lines, and parsing lines. Beginning each new discussion, the teacher, this is really a lecture as much as anything else, as you will see. I'm going to try to do a couple of different things at once. I have no idea if this will work out or not, but I'm definitely going to try. Don't want to do that. Let's try something else. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to waste your time listening to me fumble around. Believe it or not, I have had this set up many times already, and every time it's a little bit different. So, hold on just a minute. I'll be back. I figured that it would be faster to do it this way than the other because I'm taking way too long, and I only have 15 minutes. Alright, so, alright, I don't know if this will work or not. Can you see what's on here? So, anyway, if you can, let's take a look at line endings. First of all, he doesn't use the term line breaks. And he discusses three primary types of line. First of all, what you would use ordinarily here would be the line stop, and that's the one where we use most often, and then enjambment. Enjambment, we have two different kinds, the annotating lines and parsing lines. Okay? So now let's listen to a brief performance of Edgar Allan Poe's The Bells. And the actor here is Tom O'Bedlam. And if you want to hear the whole thing, you'll have to go to YouTube for that.
The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells. What a world of merriment their melody foretells. How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that over sprinkle all their heavens seem to twinkle to the crystalline delight. Keeping time, 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 in a sort of moon line, to the tintinabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 bells.
Stop that right there and continue with listening to the rest of what we have here to say. The next thing I wanted to talk about was examples from that lovely poem of parsing lines and annotating lines. And if you take a look at this slide, if you can see it, oh, from out the sounding cells, what a gush of euphony voluminously wells. This is an example of parsing lines. And then annotating lines, how it dwells on the future, how it tells of the rapture that impels to the swinging and the ringing of the bells, bells, bells. And you notice that in the parsing lines, you have a comma after the cells, and then what a gush of euphony voluminously wells. So we know right here this is a parsing line because there is a punctuation there that breaks us up. There doesn't have to be punctuation there, but there's a natural break. So either whether it's voiced or it's not voiced, it's a natural break there where you would put it. When you have an annotating line, you do not have a natural break there, and you do not have a syntactical break there. So, for example, how it dwells on the future, how it tells of the rapture that impels to the swinging and the ringing of the bells. Notice how that it just pulls us along, and that's what the annotating lines do. They pull us along. Alright, moving on from there, let's take a look at the relationship between the formal choices and the ideological choices that writers make. A poet who works in lines feels that her syntax isn't very interesting. Abandoning lines may allow her to discover syntactical possibilities that her usual manner of lineation has occluded. And if a poet who has abandoned lines finds that her syntax has grown predictable, then the introduction of lineation may provide a tension that will invigorate the syntax. The next thing he does is he starts to talk about how William Butler Yeats was writing in his journal, and this journal was found. And in his journal, he was writing down these thoughts that he had. How should the world gain if this house failed, even though 100 little houses were the better for it? And he goes on, this is on page 100. Yeats had a lot of ideas for poems. He was passionately concerned about a number of social issues, but he was managing a theater, and he hadn't done any writing in years, and so he was concerned that his ideas may not be all that great anymore because it had been such a long time since he'd really done any practice. So he came up with like a method of making himself, an invention for getting himself to the part where he can write a poem. So he would just start writing what he was thinking as I started out to read there. That eventually became a poem. And then later on, he used a similar circumstance, where he, in this one, became the seedbed for the fascination of what's difficult. And this is on page 115. Yeats puts down his ideas for this poem. He's already thinking about the sound of the word difficult, more so than its meaning. He can hear the poem unfolding before he notes anything about its arrangement, structure, or form. So what Yeats had written was to complain of the fascination of what's difficult. It's spontaneity and pleasure, and it wastes time. Repeat the line ending difficult 3 times, and rhyme bolt, exult, colt, and jolt. One could use the thought of a wild-winged and unbroken colt that must drag a cart of stones out of pride because it's difficult, and end by denouncing drama, accounts, public contests, all that's merely difficult. So that's what he did. He's thinking out loud. He's got this metacognition going on where he's thinking about, these are the words I want to rhyme. This is what I want to do. Thinking all out loud as he is writing in his journal. So then, after several months, he goes back, and this is what he ended up doing. He wrote, "The fascination of what's difficult has dried the sap out of my veins and rent spontaneous joy and natural content out of my heart. There is something ails our colt that must, if it had not only blood, nor on Olympus leap from cloud to cloud, shiver at the lash, and strain and sweat and jolt, as though it dragged road metal." Then, what he finally ends up doing is he ended up setting up a structure that's very similar to a sonnet. It's not a sonnet because Yeats has placed his volta, or the turn, in the middle of the 8th line rather than at the beginning of the 9th line where it traditionally appears. And his 13-line poem has the structure of a sonnet but does not have the form of a sonnet. So it's very similar to a Petrarchan sonnet, but he changes it just slightly. So it has the poem's argument and turns against itself just like a sonnet does, but the proportions are slightly off. The argument does not inhibit the meter and rhyme scheme in precisely the traditional manner. So then it ends up with "My curse on plays." So that's off by itself. So that's one of the departures from a sonnet that have been set up in 50 ways on the day's war with every knave and dolt, theater business, management of men. I swear, before the dawn comes round again, I'll find the stable and pull out the bolt. Colt, jolt. Yeah, it's interesting the way he did that. And if you get a chance, get back and look at this piece here. Anyway, a poem may harness the power of meter, rhyme, syntax, and line to establish and disrupt a pattern of sound, and a poem may, with equal integrity, reject the power of meter, rhyme, syntax, and line. But the poet needs to understand that what she is rejecting, as well as what she is harnessing, every poem is based, at least implicitly, on a choice to do something rather than something else, and as a result, every poem takes power from exclusions as well as its inclusions. So, let's try to playing with sound. And if you take a look at the next two blogs, hopefully you will respond and have a little bit of fun, and I'd be interested to see your comments. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.